This is our Unconstitutional Awakening program.
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Brought to you by KD Consulting Redesigned.
Order followers. These are the people who keep this system of slavery in place. Okay? They're the people who keep this system of slavery in place. Let me just say this again. Order followers are the people who keep the existence of slavery in place. Not the ruling class, not the masters, not the so-called elite, which aren't the elite of anything but the bottom of a trash can. Okay? The people who keep slavery in place are the people who willfully follow their orders. Nobody wants to hear that. And people will hate you for saying it. Following orders means, by definition, doing what you are told to do without judging for yourself whether or not that action that you are being ordered to carry out is actually right or wrong. That's the definition of following orders. I mean, can anybody refute that? Is that not the actual definition of following someone else's order? By definition, you're not, if you're following the order, you're given the order and then you just act. You just do it because you're following the order. You don't sit there and go, is what that person told me to do right? Do I have a right to do that? Is that moral? Should I do that because, it's okay and it doesn't hurt somebody else? Or should I not do that because it actually does cause harm? It's not what an order follower does in their mind. An order follower says, yes, sir, and follows the order. That's why it's called an order follower. That's why it's called following an order. So that's the definition of what an order follower is. It's not my perception of what an order follower is. It's the actual definition of order following. Okay? If an individual, this is key to understand, if an individual is performing the task of following orders, by definition, that individual cannot be exercising conscience. Since, by definition, exercising conscience means that one is willfully choosing through their free will for themselves right action over wrong action. So the concept of following orders is completely polar opposite to the concept of exercising conscience. You cannot be doing the same things simultaneously. It's impossible to do those two things simultaneously. They are contradictions in terms by definition. Okay? Most people don't grasp that. Okay? By definition, if you're following orders, you cannot be actually exercising conscience, which involves free will choice based on the knowledge of right and wrong. Here's what order following gets us as far as a nation is concerned. Not that we're not already there, not that these people already didn't take us. Because we're taken by them already, covertly. They took us through the school systems. They couldn't beat us militarily. So they said, well, let's send our ideologues over there and get into the minds of their children. And if you don't believe that's what happened, you're very, very, very naive. Not only the Nazis, but the communists as well. Because really, it's all just forms of socialism. That's what feudalism is. Worldwide socialism is there's no such thing as private property. State owns everything. Rights don't exist. Property rights don't exist. Everybody's a feudal serf again. It's called neo-feudalism. I don't care which branch you come at it from. You want to come at it from the left, that's called communism. You want to come at it from the right, that's called National Socialism. Communism, international socialism. They're both the same force. It's called feudalism. Let's just call it what it is. It's called feudalism, which is in itself just another euphemism for slavery. They want neo-feudalism, which is the New World Order of slavery. Okay? And it's already here. It's not something that's coming. It's here now. The object is to get out of it. This is the result of following orders. That's what following orders gets to society. Following orders should never be seen as a virtue. Following orders is evil. I don't care whether you're, I don't care if somebody who is considered a holy man gives me an order and I follow it, I've just committed an act of evil, as far as I'm concerned. If I'm acting based on solely what somebody else has told me to do, that's evil. There's no morality in it at all. At all. At all. It's not a virtue. It's evil. Okay? Let me just make that so abundantly clear and state it so unequivocally. There's no such thing as any possible moral following of orders. The two terms are contradictory. All right? I was just following orders is never a valid excuse or justification for immoral criminal behavior, and this lame attempt to abdicate personal responsibility should never be accepted as a valid excuse for such behavior. And why it's done is through justification. And again, that means to create a right, from jus, meaning right or law, and the Latin verb facere, which means to make or to create. And this is what they say. I was just following orders. I was just doing my job. I was shutting down your protest. You don't have a right to speak. The politicians commanded me so. So I just came out and I was just doing my job, hitting you with a sound cannon. You know, just doing my job, just following my orders. It's a justification. You're a criminal. There's nothing moral in that. There's nothing virtuous in that. It's called criminal behavior, criminal activity. And what they do is try to create it into a right, make it into a right by a justification. And nobody should ever accept their justifications. Because you know what their justifications is? You know what they are? It's called a 100% crock of bull that is a complete lie. It's a lie. They're just straight up looking you in the face and saying, I'm not responsible for that. I just did it, but I'm not the one who's responsible for it because I was acting on orders. Well, see, this defense didn't work as the Nuremberg defense, and nobody in America should be accepting it. Nobody in America should be accepting it because they believe in the legitimacy of authority and government through mind control. That's what they believe it. They believe there's legitimacy to it. Most people actually believe that there's legitimacy to this criminal behavior because a class of people calling themselves government have magically been imbued and gifted with such rights, quote unquote. They believe they have rights other people don't. They themselves believe it, but worse is that the people who are actually affected by that criminal behavior, they believe they have the authority to do it. Gandhi said, you assist an evil system most effectively by obeying its orders and decrees. An evil system never deserves such allegiance. Allegiance to it means partaking of the evil. A good person will resist an evil system with his or her whole soul, which means saying no.
Ahoy there, mateys. It's time to set sail on another episode of Unconstitutional Awakening. I figured I'd open this episode up with Mark Passio there and a clip from his speech that he had about order followers. He's actually pretty passionate about that subject and has many videos out there of him. And that's just one that hits a lot of the right nerves because my buddy there from Defeat the Media and the Upside Down over there in Aussie land, Terry, has joined us again today, and he that was the subject he suggested that we get to come on and talk about today was order followers. And I think there's a lot to be said to that, as Mr. Passio was just saying, that, you know, they're at the end of the day, they're the ones who bring down that, hand of or boot or whatever it is of the government and follow through with their actions and such. So, I feel that was just a great place to kick this episode off. And then, of course, as you can see, I've got Neptune with me here today, and Terry's joining us because, like I said, this is I think this is a really good subject. I'm glad Terry brought this.
Hey guys, how you doing?
And I'm so stoked to have you back over here again, bud. I love it when you got time to come over here and join us. I know your time zone and stuff, like you're in the future compared to where I am, as but it's good that you can still connect with us every now and then and come on and have these conversations.
Yeah, it's always
how you
fun
doing
to jump
today, bud?
back on. Yeah, I'm good. It's half six in the morning, so it's not too bad. Just like getting up for a normal work day, but no, it's good. It's always good to jump back on. Thanks very much for having me, Jimmy.
Yes, sir. Neptune, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing well, man. And Terry, great to see you again, man. And this was this was a great topic to bring up. I think this is a good subject matter.
Oh, I really do too. This is
in right now.
I think that's the thing that's over there with us trying to do all this stuff and all these different subjects and being all over the place over there at Unconstitutional Awakening. And the podcast and stuff. We some of these subjects are very important, and I think they're overlooked by the goings on in the world and stuff like that today. And I think these are things we need to pause and look for. And as Mark Passio said in the beginning of his little speech there, this is one of those subjects that people don't like to talk about. And, I hate to say it, I think this is one of the main subjects more people should talk about, because right down to your local level, you've got order followers enforcing the will of, tyranny on a day-to-day basis. So that's an important subject. And of course, you guys know though that we can you can find all this good kind of stuff hanging out over here on our spectacular website, unconstitutionalawakening.com, where you can find all our great stuff, including links to the podcast, links to any kind of updated news we try to put up, the new UA social, and links to watch our show on Odyssey, Rumble, and BitChute, and everywhere you can listen to it, including the website itself. And I do thank each and every one of y'all that take the time to tune in and such, worldwide even. That's pretty impressive, I believe. You can also check out our merch store and get linked back to our sponsors. And because Terry is a regular friend of the group here, you can totally get back to his Facebook page directly off of the website as well too, because that's what it's about to me, is bringing people together. And I love the work he does over there on Facebook with trying to spread information, and that's why I feel he's a part of this family anyway. So, but of course you get over there and you can check out those sponsors of ours, our Friends of Liberty, that are trying to give alternative views and alternative things than the regular that you get from corporations and stuff. Like my buddy Kirk Elliott over there with kirkelliottphd.com/Jim Bob/. He's helping you invest your money in things like gold, silver, 401k type stuff, things that you should do, especially with the gold and silver, not knowing where currency's going, because I promise you, gold and silver will still have value even if the dollar goes belly up today. So make sure you check out Kirk Elliott over there, man. That link will be down there and on this episode and on the website, as well as Peachy Key Creations, our local energy healer and natural soap and candle maker. She makes some great homemade candles and awesome soaps, like our new Dragon's Blood Pirate soap in lieu of the show here, where everything's done with real materials instead of whatever they're buying and putting into stuff in your stores and stuff. You can go check her out at Facebook and on Etsy, and that's Peachy Key Creations. And my little young buddy over there, Ammo Can Survival, making camping, first aid, and survival gear, as well as ghillie suits and some of these awesome plate carriers that he's got going on. If you scroll down here, you can see different things he's got going on and building for folks, man. He's always a busy young man. He's got a good future in this stuff, and that's Ammo Can Survival over there on Instagram. And of course, lastly, my good buddy Brett Pike over there at classicallearner.com with Homeschools Connected and Cubs to Bears books. He's trying to help. He's a former teacher, and he's trying to help all these other parents that have walked away from the indoctrination camps, at least here in the States and worldwide, if you're willing. And, you can get into some of these homeschool curriculums that he gives out for free. And as I've mentioned before, he's even got a really cool one right now on boat building. So if you decide you want to design and build a sailboat, set sail on the open sea like we do, that'd be the guy to talk to. And that's Homeschools Connected, man. Of course, you guys know, like I said, I try to make sure I have all these links with each episode, and they're on the website so that you can check them out anytime you want. these folks are helping us try to build a better tomorrow by offering these alternative things to whatever corporations out there doing their thing. So now that I got all that good stuff out of the way, let's just jump into it. Terry, what are your feelings on order followers, good sir?
It's something pretty close to my heart because I used to be one. I was in the Royal Air Force for 9 years, maybe a couple of months shy of that. I wasn't infantry, anything like that, but obviously I had the basic infantry training. So a tradesman in the Air Force. So not frontline, not army, I get that. But I was part of that system, that institution of the military. So, it's something that's close to my heart. And I know that it's something that people don't really like to talk about in general because, let's be honest, most people, they don't have friends or family that you could class as an institutional order follower. And so it means that you have to confront them about their actions, and people don't like doing it. And I've done it myself. I've said, I've got friends, obviously, that are still in the military, and you talk to them and, they don't like it. They don't like it at all. Because you're questioning their moral, because they believe that they're morally good people. And then when you're highlighting, well, actually, are you? I know you're good to me, you're good to your family, you're good to your friends, but are you, in general, by following orders, are you morally a good person? And that really, it sticks right in the neck for them. They really don't like that.
Are you good to your fellow man?
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
I've been permanently excused from my little brother's Christmas gathering because he's a cop, and he was bragging about writing a 70-something-year-old man a jaywalking ticket, and we ended up getting into an argument over it. And yeah, I got permanently uninvited, and I was just like, look, because I feel I had a good argument. That's a 76-year-old man. He's done his time. He's probably been into the military and things like that. And that old man feels like risking his life to go across the street, not at the crosswalk. That's on him, dude. Like you
or just leave him alone. Just check and say, are you okay? Are you all right?
Yeah,
is he sound of mind? Not this is a chance to give someone a ticket. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's not something to be proud of, nor is it really something that anyone should take pride in, by and large, in my opinion. And Terry, to your point, I was definitely a tradesman too. Doing 4 years with the Navy here in the U.S. Obviously, I never saw combat, I never saw any of that. But being part of an institution that is prepared to blindly follow the orders of what we deem our superiors, it gives time for self-reflection when you get out of it, right? And I don't think there's a better example. Jimmy, peep the chat. Something I wanted to get right into from Passeo's point in his video when he referenced those very brutal images of Nazi SS officers and such, straight up executing people. This is the Fuhrer oath. This is what those people in that time, this is what people who swore to fight for the Third Reich had to adhere to. And it gives pause for thought there, right? That you look at the Nuremberg trials. You look at the fact that obviously there are some that are still alive, and a few, including the one gentleman that had been living in Canada who had been prosecuted a couple of years ago. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with this story. It's a matter of I was just following orders, and it's still inherently immoral. And whether or not we think what we're doing right by our friends, by our family, are we doing right by our fellow man? Because it opens the door for the possibility that we commit heinous acts against other people in foreign nations or on our own soil, for example. And I use the U.S. in this example because you can't really leave a conversation, right, without bringing up something seriously fucked up the U.S. has done in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Authorizing a drone strike on a school bus full of children. Like,
oh, man.
For real.
I mean, you think about you think about some of the things people are capable of doing in the name of following orders. Yep. I mean, you've seen the Führer's Oath there, and that's obviously to do with, well, this is a higher purpose. So they've used God. So you're serving God, right? They weren't serving God. Whether or not they believe in God, that's different. But what Hitler's done there, or they're attributing your actions to a higher cause, not to himself and an elitist group of psychos.
Yeah. Terry, can I ask you something about, because I don't know what the Royal Army, Royal Air Force, Royal Navy would do back when you served, but there aren't too many years between us, so I have to ask: were you ever given a Bible during or after your recruit training?
Yes. Yeah.
I was as well, and it was almost conditioned that into our belief system that we were serving a higher power and doing the will of God. And honestly, it's just, Jimmy, I see the shocked look on your face. This is a real thing.
Not really.
As far as I know, the Marine Corps still does it. It's not commonplace in the modern military with the way society is now. And I'm not saying it was ever a good thing in the first place, but it's just, it's something, and obviously it echoes across the pond to our cousins across the way, right? That this is something that if we couldn't excuse ourselves of doing it, then we have to make right that we did right when we approached the pearly gates.
If you go,
that we can be absolved of our actions. And how fucked up is that? That, okay, sorry, I did all these heinous things when I was on Earth, but hey, I put my hand on the Bible that I thought I did the right thing, right?
Well, I mean,
and I'm following the orders in the name of what I thought was right. Yeah.
Most conflicts, most of these wars throughout human history have been very religious based, and each side
absolutely
thinks they're doing the work of their God. Like, when you've got people. There's people that will strap bombs to kids and be like, if you go in there and blow these people up, you're going to have a great time in the afterlife. And it's just like, what? Like, why would you tell someone that? Like,
I think it almost permeates every walk of life that we have now. Like, and I liken it more these days to police in the U.S. who are they already are paramilitary, but are continuing to be even more paramilitary and through military surplus, which obviously we've talked about in past episodes. Terry, you've heard me talk about that before, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, that I think it's just woefully wrong to give law enforcement that purview of power, that to follow orders and then give them the same means by which they could almost declare asymmetrical warfare on their own people. Well, it's just wrong, man.
They've been granted more power gradually over the years, haven't they? So, I mean, obviously I see it there, but it's global. We live in a global empire.
Absolutely.
And pretty much most of them all run off of the same formula. And
I agree.
If you go back 20 years or so, I don't think police were given anywhere near as much power as what they have now. I mean, their job title is supposed to be to stop a crime. I mean, I don't know what your definition is there, but it's supposed to be to protect private property, I think, and to stop any physical harm. And now it's basically
serve and protect.
It's commonly accepted even that they're just allowed to go around and steal money off you, basically by fining you, and if you don't, then they'll pull you off the street and throw you in a cage. The amount of things that they can do, evict you from your home, all these things that people just blindly accept, they are not allowed to do, and it's not their job title.
Seizures of stuff and things like that.
Civil
really
forfeiture is so fucked. Civil forfeiture is so fucked.
But I think police are a good example of this because, if you really think about it, a lot of your order followers are sociopathic. They have psychological issues. You know what I'm saying? Like there's something wrong up there. And if it's one thing that I will personally sit here and say about especially American cops, you have a lot of uneducated psychopaths that went through a couple weeks of training to learn how to extort you in the best route that they possibly can.
Yes.
The smart ones are CEOs and bankers and politicians. The dumb ones are cops, pretty much.
And, Passio made a terrific point there that, while I'll disagree on the assertion that I do absolutely believe that the string pullers, the puppet masters, if you will, have as much stake in calling the shots on what they deem is unlawful or should be illegal, right? And obviously we should absolutely hold the individuals who say I'm just following orders accountable. There's absolutely that disparity there that the weak-minded will follow, and I don't think there's any better reference of that in history as far as looking at Nazi Germany. But to that end, it's almost ingrained in our DNA, right? That we see these people in day-to-day life. You can go on any Facebook page. You can see where Spike Cohen will chime in, just dragging police agencies through the coals, right? Terry, I don't know if you see this very much, but Spike,
I do see it, yeah.
He's all over almost all of them. It's like, where's he going to show up next? And then you see something you never heard about. And then you see all the local people around that particular agency, that department, that says, God bless our police for keeping our communities safe. For what? Getting an ounce of fucking marijuana off a guy? Really?
Oh, I mean, those posts get smashed so badly now, don't they? It's a thing of beauty to see them getting dragged so hard, but
absolutely, I agree.
I mean, I'm not going to collectively blanket all order followers as psychopaths and sociopaths because I know that myself. I'm not, but what I do know is that I was willing to commit actions that could have been deemed the same because I was brainwashed at the time. I'm always reminded of a quote from I think it was Goebbels: "Take their rights away 1,000 tiny pieces at a time." Well, the same can be said about increasing the amount of power that order followers are given, especially police, obviously. I mean, if you look over, say, 20, 30 years, you've now got police officers that are allowed to kill with immunity, basically. And then we live in a digital world where everything is documented. It's not even a case of going to court and he says, she says. You can literally look at videos now where police officers are caught firstly given, the dog the old 1-2, and then they'll no-knock raid into a house and they'll just shoot whoever moves. And for some reason, they're allowed to be let away with that. So that's given them permission to basically end people's lives without any repercussions whatsoever. I mean, we know obviously when politically it's usable, they will prosecute police, like the George Floyd incident, because that got such a widespread global sort of condemnation that there was no way that he could have got away with that. So, but on smaller instances that aren't as widely known, you find that the police tend to be able to get away literally with murder. I mean, that's absolutely power that it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's mind-boggling. And brother, I wish you were on the other night because I actually brought up this exact thing. So, Jimmy, pull that Graham versus Connor up again, if you will, if you don't mind, because I'd like to talk about this for a moment. So when we think of policing in the U.S., qualified immunity, obviously, it gives police some shield from civil liability. So, right, they can't be sued for wrongful death in civil court, right? But the standard in the U.S. for what is defined in court as the standard for any law enforcement action that involves officer-involved shootings or any use of force is the case of Graham versus Connor, and they call it the reasonableness test. It's given this name because of, and this will get to to human conditioning, which I'd like to touch on here in a second. But essentially, any court case that involves an officer using deadly force could be perceived as reasonable in the eyes of the jury. And there's a human condition that goes into that. Because if you're in a court setting where you are surrounded by people, and let's just use any state. I'll just use Georgia, because Jimmy and I both know, living here, that this is definitely a thing where we live. If an officer shoots you and the case goes to court and you're in jury, and the jury decides that based on the evidence in front of them that the officer acted within reason, right, that it's excusable. And that goes into a real issue, I think, permeates every walk of life, that we have this problem where we talk about what power the police should have. And then the time comes to use that power, and we just blindly bend over and say, God bless the police. We don't question the ulterior motive. The only time I can think of in recent memory that someone was really held accountable from a police perspective in this matter was Amber Geiger breaking into the home of Botham Jean and thinking that she was going into her own apartment and shooting the man. And that was fucking wrong, right?
Yeah, she's fucking lying as well.
She lied her ass off. And she got, what was it, like 10 years? Was it like 10 years in prison? She'll still walk again after murdering a man. Straight up home invasion and murdering a man. If a civilian did that, if they were in a southern state, they'd get the death penalty. See, the same standard by which she was judged would get a person in that state, Texas, that would get them the death penalty. And I'm not even going to bust balls about that. That is the absolute truth. Anyone who disagrees with that fact, I will die on that hill. I'm not going to make any bones about it. But there is that matter of human conditioning that we are there. The presumption of correctness. That was the word I was looking for. We immediately want to go into this state of believing that the police are doing right at all times, and anything that challenges that view, I don't think people know how to process that.
Well,
so I think that's my larger point there. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, they have to give them immunity because, you know, they're not going to turn on their own bodyguards, are they?
No,
I mean, that's not good tactics, is it?
No,
these people are the ones enslaving everyone for you, so you're not going to turn on them. So they basically give them as much power as they possibly can.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's obviously there's certain types of people that want to be in these sort of positions of power. There are people like myself who joined up not because I didn't join the military because I wanted to be a hero and to serve my country. I needed a job, so that sort of separates me from the likes of someone who joins the police or the military because they just need a job, and the likes of those who join because they want to commit certain acts and they want to get away with it as well. So, I mean, I think that I'm not going to be collective about order followers. You can't really be collective about anything, but there has got to be a very high amount of people in these sort of positions that are psychopaths.
100%. And even if you don't put the blanket over the order followers themselves, I think it is fair to put the blanket over the people that go around and parade those people when they go off and do something morally and ethically fucked, right?
I mean, it's a secret hiding in plain sight, but I mean, obviously, we've been at war since the dawn of time. Psychopaths versus the rest of us. It's about power. It's about this pyramid system of power and wealth. And then you've got those that serve them. And nothing much has really changed historically. And when you look at it in that sense, you can understand why they need to brainwash us so badly. Because if people actually turn around and were like, wait a minute, I can see what's going on here. Every city in the world would be on fire by the morning. But
there are
That's why they start the brainwashing early. They have to get you at the schools and say,
yeah,
well,
man.
you're serving flags, you're serving gods, you're doing this work, you're doing that, you're a good person. These are our heroes in society. Not look at these guys that are enslaving
Yeah.
you all, you know?
No, yeah, 100%. And there's a perspective to people waking up to that fact too. There are, as far as it is known, 81 million people in the U.S. are owners of registered firearms. There are 400,000 law enforcement professionals in the U.S. And this is something Bandit and I have gone on about extensively, where we talk about the matter of policing and how that would actually look if they try to enforce that reasonably within a boundary of people that are not going to just bend over and take a knee. It won't work. It will fail, and it will fail miserably.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why you have so many police, they take the steps to, like I was sharing a few minutes ago, to get into police unions. And I don't think people understand that a police union is not like a labor union. Like,
Yeah,
the
man.
purpose of a police union is to find more ways to help them cover their own ass.
100%. Like I was thinking about this before we even jumped on. After looking at the notes when you sent me that stuff earlier, Jimmy,
Yeah.
I was looking at the notes from what Terry had said, and I was thinking about the larger implication of police unions as it applies in the U.S., especially with laws like Graham versus Connor, like Terry versus Ohio. With respect to any law that gives police power, there is a police union. They are waiting, chomping at the bit to defend why that is okay. And then you've got an army of people behind that when it hits the media that are prepared to say, this is okay. We should not overturn this law because A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right?
You shouldn't have
And
resisted. Fighter
yeah, we should have just complied. Like, seriously. Like, Jesus should have just complied with the fucking Romans. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's
Sorry,
it's
I know I'm using more curse words than I normally use in one of these, but I keep this one close to the chest, just like Terry does.
But I mean, with that, there are different kinds of order followers, and I think that's what Terry was kind of alluding at there. You do have your blind faith. They're going to do whatever they need to do for that paycheck, and then you've got people that were kind of just getting, trying to get a paycheck, and so you were brainwashed and you were kind of laying low. You were doing what you were told to do, but in the back of your mind, you probably still had that voice that was going, "Wait a minute, bro. Wait a minute. Is this moral? Is this right?" You know what I'm saying? Where I feel a lot of these guys, and the George Floyd is a hairy example, but a lot of these guys, they're willing to do whatever they need to do to apprehend or whatever and make sure those orders are followed through regardless of who they kill.
So let me, if I may, I haven't gone on the record about this, but this is something I feel like I should go ahead and say. So after I got out of the Navy many years ago, I did go to school, and I majored in criminal justice, minored in information technology. But as a component of that, I went through North Carolina's basic law enforcement training program. And essentially what that is it is what will allow you to carry a firearm and apply for a job anywhere, be it private security, be it, public, police institution, whatever. And I look back on that now because my whole thought was, hey, maybe I could actually do some good. Maybe I could do some good in the community. I was young. I was definitely not where I'm at now. And I wanted to get into law enforcement. I had upper aspirations of getting into the FBI. And looking back at it now, I realize that it was probably a good thing. But in the short of it, you go through this psychological exam, which is not really a psychological exam of kind of your character. It's more of it's an evaluation of how you would treat specific scenarios. And how that wound up for me was that I was told verbatim, as a matter of fact, by one particular agency, we're not in need of your services. And I never got any explanation to that. And as I've looked back on that through the years, I realized that, okay, I see now what the actual interest and guiding light is. And it comes down to if you're going to act within the matter of making a judgment call, or if you're just going to do what you're told.
I think I'd be fascinated. I'd be fascinated to know just how psychological the exams are, and if they actively, they put check marks against those that are willing to just carry out any action because it's plausible.
I wish I knew what that actually looked like.
I would love to see one of those tests.
Me too.
I'd love to see one.
I would love to know how that piece of paper, that 5-page long ass packet looking thing, was actually graded. That it's something that's it stuck out in my mind. Like at the time, I was like, "What did I do wrong?" I didn't know, but over the years, I've just thought of it in that manner. That okay.
Well, I mean, I think we can all.
I think I dodged a bullet.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we can all agree that I don't know. Maybe you might disagree. I think order followers are the most dangerous people in society. I think it goes without question that without them, everything else unravels. Now, I get that people want some form of order, but I mean, you can do that within your own communities, can't you? Really? I mean, you guys are still armed, so people aren't tending. If they've got a brain on them, they're not going to break open your house and fuck with you and try and steal your stuff, are they? But what's this?
I found this interesting article. I want
to actually read this.
This is good,
and I'm gonna make sure that I share. But this was an article written on Quora or whatever by an actual psychologist that feels that the so-called psychological test that police are given is complete nonsense.
Wow.
And I read through it a little bit beforehand, but it's basically it's just fishing for people that, like I think you were just saying a second ago, Neptune, and even you, Terry, it's just fishing for people that are.
Jimmy, can you link this? I want to read this while we're talking.
They're fishing for people that are like you just said. They're more so looking for people that will just blindly do as they're told, instead of looking for people that, actually have a higher set, like IQ or a conscience. I mean, I'll turn it all the way back to a conscience. Like I feel in a lot of times that I've gotten mix-ups with police and stuff that there is no logical reasoning with these guys. Like no matter what you try to, if you try to have a civil logic conversation with them, they're trying to turn it back around and look for things that they can just kind of impose on you and such. And it's psychological mind games.
If you watch any of the videos where they get questioned, you look at their face and their actions when they are questioned and someone questions their authority. You can almost see the psychopath spilling out of every pore. They don't like it. They hate it. You can see them boiling up. They're like, "How dare you? I'm a police officer. I've got the power here. You do as I say." And the fact that if you question them,
Jimmy, show him the clip of that.
You can see escalate off of that. It's not even the issue in hand. It's just that they're willing to start getting violent with you because that's what their primitive actions are when someone questions their authority. They don't like it at all. It's very primitive.
They don't. And actually there's a great example that I'm about to pull up because this was real funny. These dudes out here in whereverville were standing in front of a Taco Bell filming, and they straight up just ignored, like they weren't doing anything illegal, they weren't doing anything wrong. They were having a conversation about Taco Bell, and these cops walked up and started asking them what they're doing.
Show him the one. Pull up the one of the woman saying,
Well,
"Get
lady, if
the
you
F
were
out of the way."
The one
Sorry, the woman who said you can go 90 miles an hour down the highway. Yeah, pull that one up.
It's just a
I'm
bad
sure
one,
you've
is
seen
it?
that floating around there, Terry, on the internet.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he has not seen this one, but this one is this one absolutely goes into the power projection, and it's a wild ride. It's a thing.
I'm looking. Hang on. Trying to pull it back. I think I found it.
I mean, it's just it gives the credence, right?
I got it.
That there's nothing else to be said except for that police think they can do whatever the fuck they want.
I'm speaking for myself, but I'm probably speaking for a large majority of other officers out there. If we're driving on the freeway in our police car, get the out of the way. Get the out of the way.
The video's having a little bit of trouble, but she goes on to continue to cuss people.
I've seen that one.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
We talked about it the other night on the show, and
he's a psychopath.
Ooh.
Absolute psychopath. I mean, if I can delve quickly, just dive off topic a little bit. Obviously, I mentioned before that I was an order follower. Now, I'm not a psychopath, but the thing is, when you're in groups and there's groupthink, certain behaviors and views are acceptable. So when you join the military and they're all, say, excuse my language, oh, I can't wait to go to Iraq or Afghanistan and kill myself some ragheads and stuff. And you sit and you laugh, ha 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 ha. And it's that horrible, completely immoral sort of sense of actions that are allowable. It sort of passes over. Do you know what I mean? Psychologically, people don't want to stand up and say, "Oh, that's hideous. That's absolutely horrible." Because then the group will turn on you, and people don't like that isolation, so they go along with the group think. And let me tell you, in the military, there's a lot of people that are like, a lot of people completely blind to any sort of politics at all. So they don't know why they're going to these places. They've no idea. But it's us v them, and there's very much that kind of attitude of us v them. And I've got to be honest, I was suckered in by it as well when I was young. Now, the youth part is very important because I wasn't politically aware of very much when I joined the military. I don't know about you, Neptune, or
9/11. 9/11.
There you go.
And I mean, he was in before me, so I don't know all of his reasonings, but it was 9/11 for me.
I needed a job. But when I joined up, obviously, that groupthink takes over because you're not politically astute at a young age and you're very vulnerable, easily led. So you tend to just follow the groupthink. And then I've got to be honest, 8 years before I started being like, what's going on here? So you see all this thing happening, but the media, they'll justify the actions and saying, oh, well, they're the bad guys and we're the good guys. Okay, so we need to go and get them. We need to give them some freedom and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually one comes along and you're like, really? I mean, what's going on here? So I started asking questions when we started bombing Libya in 2010, 2011, I think it was. Going back quite a while now. And I said to my boss, I says, so why are we going to Libya? And this is pretty stark. He's like, I don't know. That's just the order that's come down from the top. And that's what he said to me. And I was like, wow. So no one knows. We're just being told, yeah, we're going to go and carpet bomb that country. And then the Syria fiasco happened. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is it the countries that we're going to free always seem to have something like oil, right? So that's where I started like switching. I don't know what it was for you that maybe made you leave, or whether you started to question if you were on the right side or not. But for me, that's things started to kick in around about that time. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's something not right here. Why are we going to these places? But I don't know what it was like for yourself.
It was kind of at Arafat. It was Libya to a point. It was also a culmination of distrust in command because, as you know, we're expected to trust the chain of command.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something you're supposed to just trust the process. And I felt very jaded in the there's a lot of political business within the military that I don't think people who have not served will ever understand. But when you're denied resources, when there is like drama, like in the civilian world, like dealing with like HR related matters, right? There was a lot of that. But then on the other side of that, there was a lot of stuff, especially leading up to the conflict with Libya, with Yasser Arafat, that was like, I didn't know. And at that time, I would have probably still identified as probably a Republican conservative. I didn't really kind of fall off the wagon until later on, probably like 2012, 2013. For me, leaving was more of just the way that the way the military treats its own people. Like, even past the point of what you're doing is wrong, we're just going to hang you out to dry when you get out. And I still see that today with the way that veterans are treated by Veterans Administration, by the VA. And it's a whole thing here in the U.S. For every 100 vets you talk to, probably 90 of them have a story about some bad experience they had with the VA, and it's really bad. Like, they've never taken a serious invested interest in our own welfare. For as much of a clique as the military is, that you would think that they would look out for their own. No, I feel like it comes down to money.
Well, I've seen a lot of Sorry, I just quickly jump in while you're on the subject of veterans. I've seen that the amount of people that commit suicide upon leaving the military or while they're still in, and the numbers are frightening. I think it was more people kill themselves than are actually dying in theaters of war. I could be incorrect about that. I've seen some figures the other day.
It's about every 8 minutes. And this is probably true worldwide. It's about every 8 minutes a veteran will take his own life.
And so people do realize that they might have been duped the whole time, especially now in the digital age where people are seeing likes of us ourselves talking about this. And they're thinking, shit, I was to
get jaded.
And oh shit, I was on the wrong side. I've done this. I've killed someone. Blah blah blah. And then obviously you think of the amount of people that come out of the military and how quickly we all turn on the people that lied to us, and that's why you have your red flag laws, etc. over there. It's because they want to basically deem anyone who's a veteran with military training as mentally ill. So if they say, oh, I've got a bit of PTSD and I want a bit of pot, okay, you're mentally ill, you're not allowed to own a gun. And the reason for that is because they're terrified of all these veterans grouping together and saying, right, listen, you bastards lied to us and we're going to come for you. So they need to clip them off.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%, because I even saw this on a YouTube video a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact, where someone was basically saying, we're coming after you. And a Marine vet himself said, for every civilian you come after, there is going to be a legion of military vets standing in front of those people ready to defend them. So good luck with that shit.
Well, and there's another common thing that I will say that I see, I guess, from the outside looking in, is a lot of your military vets that a lot of your military vets that choose to not end up in law enforcement, that have seen battle, that have seen atrocities, that have this distrust for their own government. they're more the ones and more along the lines you sit here and have, this kind of conversation. And I believe it most definitely was more of like a brainwashing thing, and something clicked one day and they woke up out of that brainwashing and were like, oh shit, I'm on the bad team right now. And yes, unfortunately some of it does lead to suicides. There the 36% of the big suicide numbers you see are either current or former military members. Just alone, and I was sitting here looking up some figures, just alone in 2021, there were, what did it say? Where did it go? Just in 2021 itself, there were more than 581 active service members kill themselves. Active service members. Like, and that, that says a lot in its own. But, back into like the order following thing, it seems the one where the brainwashing stuck or the brainwashing didn't break, those are your ones that come out of that state and go back into more of the same thing, into like the police force. And now with them having such a militarized police force, it's like they're just walking, back into the same thing they were already doing. So it's comfortable to them. It's what they know. It's how they operate.
And it's probably, agreed. And it's probably worth pointing out that law enforcement favors prior military. And Terry, I'm sure this is true in where you are, that if you served in the U.S. military, you're pretty much bumped to the front of the line for the prospect of getting into law enforcement. Even more true from like 11 series in the Army and 0311 infantry, Marine Corps, things like that. That is an absolute preference to be able to retain those people in a civilian setting after they've done however many years in the military.
It's exactly the type of people that are going to enforce their laws, Yeah, I mean, as to what Jimmy was saying, I know personally someone, a good friend of mine, he came back from Afghanistan and he killed himself. And I've obviously been in Australia, and none of the boys knew. He didn't talk to anyone. So he got back, and I don't know what he'd seen or what had done to his mind being over there. But I mean, we're talking like while he was back on his R&R at the end of his tour, and he killed himself. And this was only 6 years ago. So yeah, active and people that leave. So I mean, there's so many reasons why people end up in serious states of mental depression, and I think it's the ones that are more empathetic and have a conscience that do end up spiraling down that sort of PTSD and depression route, is because they have a conscience and they see things that they disagree with, they don't like, and they feel lied to. And then obviously your psychopaths tend not to really care about that too much.
But factor into that this police psychological evaluation and the tendency to want to gravitate toward those people who might have psychological damage in one way or another for the hell they've been through, for the shit they've seen, and then they wind up in a law enforcement profession. Like, give pause for thought. Does the police seriously take that into account? I don't think so, personally. No. Not at all.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before and I'll say it again. Whatever the ideology is, it doesn't really matter. Historically, we have been at war with psychopaths since the dawn of time. And I do believe that, whether it be under the guise of religion 200 years ago, nationalism with the British Empire, or this current empire, it's always people that aren't well mentally, that want obscene amounts of wealth and power, and they're willing to carry out any sort of act on society in order to get that sort of power, adulation, fear, all of the above, self-importance, narcissism. And when you've got those types of people that are smart enough to elevate themselves to the top tiers of society with that wealth and power, they can do a lot of unspeakable things, and they can bring about what we've seen in the last. I mean, we live in a digital age where we can see it now. People like guys like us, we can see it, but they can see that the extensive brainwashing they're willing to go to in order to protect their system. And that's what we've got. They've got a system where they've created laws which are supposed to be moral, but really they don't care about laws because they don't live by them themselves, but they're there to control all of us. And ultimately, whether you look at it historically or now in modern day, you always need that system of order follower in place to keep the rest of us in control. And I think that that's what we're seeing, but I think that it's starting to break down now because we've got access to information. This is why they're trying to censor everyone all the time, is because the veil's been lifted. People are starting to see through this system of, this is about order, this is about being moral, just do as you're told, and people have had enough. And people are starting to see through, and the order followers that have got a conscience are starting to see it as well. And you'll see that people aren't joining the military like they were.
Yeah,
they're not joining the police in the same numbers.
Yeah, can I interject there for a moment too, because this is something interesting, and I might be off by one. I don't think that I will be though, but with the exception of Bill Clinton, so here in the U.S., with respect to the United States' increasing presence across the globe after the Second World War, up through George W. Bush Jr., with the exception of Bill Clinton, every president had served in the military in some capacity, from Ike onward. That includes Lyndon B. Johnson. JFK served. Ike served. Obviously, he was SHAEF. All the way up through George Herbert Walker Bush Sr. and then George Jr. Since then, you know, it tracks that people could lose faith in the military, that has gone down because there's almost a condition of, hey, I can identify with this person, with that mentality. I want to be like this person. It comes down to human condition, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. 100% agree.
Yeah, up until George W. Bush Jr., except Bill Clinton, every president, I believe, even Jimmy Carter, Jimmy Carter as well, he served in the Navy also. Most of them had served in the U.S. Navy or the U.S. Army. And it definitely tied into the very wide expansion of our military through the Cold War, and obviously speaks a lot to American imperialism through the Cold War to that end, and order followers that, hey, okay, yeah, I'll fall in line. This guy served in the military. He's someone I can trust. Right. So just psychology there.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's almost a conveyor belt, isn't it? Just repeating the same tactics over and over again.
Yes.
I do feel, I mean, maybe you disagree. I feel like obviously it's changing dramatically. If you look at the attempts to get people into the military now, because so many people are seeing through the charade.
Yes. The recruitment numbers are far down across the board. Yeah.
They're trying to wokeify the military and the police force now. Acceptance and tolerance. They're trying to put this progressive. I don't. Maybe I'm just seeing that. Maybe you guys see it differently. I see this sort of progressive attempt to make the military look all colourful and, you know, accepting.
I seen where back in, what was it, June, the cops had rainbow stickers on their cars, but I think they took those off when June ended.
There's there's an old meme that basically says, what's the difference between a Republican and a liberal? And it basically is two B-2 bombers dropping bombs, but a liberal one has pride flags over on it.
And the rainbow, so, yeah.
Yep.
I do think that there's an attempt now for this sort of progressiveness for these institutions. Because they're getting desperate, because people aren't joining up the way they used to, because they're seeing. I mean, you think even memes.
There's layers to this shit, man. I mean, we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, even Tanman, you know, one of our meme admins over on Captain Conspiracy. He like right out of high school was about ready to sign up for the military and everything like
I'm
that.
glad you talked him out of that, Jimmy.
And yeah, I
He
mean,
told
I
me
did. I gave him the flat out rundown of it, and I was like, really look at what you're talking about, bud. Like, look at today's military. And after having some good
he's a
conversations
good
with
kid, and he definitely didn't need to go down that path.
and he ended up, telling his recruiter, no, man, it's not for me. And I'm very proud of the dude for doing such a thing. And I know a lot of people have different views in and outs of it, but like, I don't think joining the military in the time of our great grandparents, even like in World War II and stuff, when there was an actual kind of worldwide threat going on, compared to now, where it just seems to be who can dominate the world quicker. And
it's a dick measuring contest.
The whole American, European, Australian kind of coalition that exists, with Israel thrown in that mix too, like they have just been slowly just encroaching on everybody else. And I think, as fucked up as this sounds, like I think Putin makes a good point when he doesn't want to see that encroachment coming into Russia. He has a different belief system, and instead of respecting that, we continue to try and force them into things like these coalitions of NATO and shit like that. And like, but my thing is just why? Like, the evidence is there. Truly, if you really look, the evidence is there. Like you made mention earlier, going to Libya. Why? Well, we don't know. That's just the orders that were there. Bombing Yemen. Why? We don't know. That's just the orders that were there.
It's like always about empire.
It just seems like a global empire trying to literally take over the world.
It's a fucking dick measuring contest.
One empire ends, the next one begins. It's just repeat. History repeats. And you need the order followers to do that.
And absolutely. And we talked about this a couple days ago on the podcast. Like, for me, in my perspective, like in the furthering expansion of NATO, the Warsaw Pact officially died with the Soviet Union. But I don't think it ever really died. Or if it did, the fight of the Cold War has not really changed. It's just a matter of powers have shifted, and there is a shift in technology between the Eastern powers and the Western powers. Like Western Europe, NATO has never slowed down even after the Cold War ended. But the Warsaw Pact represented all of the comm bloc from the 1950s up until the fall of the Berlin Wall, right? So I don't think that ever went away, at least as far as in virtue, that the world remains divided. And what it comes down to, for especially in the sense of order followers, is whatever comes of it, somebody's going to want to rule the ashes they stand on.
Yeah. Yes.
That's my opinion.
Perfect. I love that. I think it's true. Historically, we're not really learning from our mistakes, are we? We go from
we're not. No, we're absolutely not.
That's because
people just not clicking on at all. Sorry, what did you say?
Go ahead.
I was saying that's because we're not being taught complete history. I think
true.
there's been so much omitted and edited throughout history that is what's causing us to be in a repeat cycle.
Repeat after me. History is written by the victor.
Yes. I think Mark Passio was bang on as well when he's saying that they start with the kids.
Yep.
They start early because, let's be honest, as kids, we don't even necessarily pay attention to some of the things that they're brainwashing us with when we're kids. Our country's good. So when I was growing up at school in the UK and Scotland, they tell you there has to be the British Empire, but it's all about how this tiny island conquered the world. It's not like, empire's bad, it's wrong.
It's not much. That's not unlike what Jimmy and I learned.
All these countries.
Yeah, that's not any different than what Jimmy and I would have learned in public school. I mean, how America evolved from nothing over 450 years to become the largest superpower in the world.
Just straight away, as a small child, you have this sort of heroic understanding of soldiers. You straight away as a child, you're like, oh well, they're great and they're brave, and they help conquer. And so straight away they do. I think I disagree with Mark Passio on some things, but he's a lot of it, especially with order followers. He's spot on, and he nails it in the head there where they start young. Because by the time they come to social media and talking in our sort of circles and pages, they're already fully gone, you know? Mm-hmm. They've got that flag imprinted in the back of their brain, or religion, whatever it is, and somewhere along the line they've been taught that they're great and, you know, people elsewhere are bad and they're subhuman, you know? They always make people seem subhuman, so that any actions that order followers take, it's legitimate because they're not human anyway, you know?
Yeah. It doesn't matter where you got your education from. Your nation is first and everyone else is beneath you.
Yeah.
America first, England first.
Russia first, China first. It's like that regardless of which country you're in.
That's globally.
I mean, you look at the state of order following in China.
Yeah, and I mean, and if you really think about it, that's dangerous in itself, because, you know, I'm not a big advocate for patriotism. Like, I think that if you're standing up because your country's number one according to your perspective, well, that's just dumb as shit. Just because there's an imaginary line doesn't make the people that live in Mexico any more different than the people that, you know, I live next to now. And just like you're over in Australia, and, you know, I don't think your people are much different than the people that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, you know.
We're not.
And, yeah, and, you know, you get these thoughts of, oh, America's the best, and you have these folks running around here acting like we're just superior and we're doing all this great stuff. But when you really look at it on paper, and this is in the perspective of all countries, when you look at your own country on paper from an outside source, it's just like, well, why are these atrocities happening? I've caught tons of flack over the years because I don't care which country's flag it is, even ours. I'm just like, fuck your team. You know,
Jimmy,
your team's not better than my team. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm like, fuck
Jimmy. I've got a meme. Jimmy, I've got a meme before you pull this up. This is all I've got to say, especially to that end, is that fuck around and find out is a universal language.
That's brilliant. That's Australia, by the way. I know that one. The guy on the right.
On the left? Yeah.
The guy on yeah, him too.
But I mean, but it is, you know, I feel that people get their ideas up in the wrong way. And, you know, when you really think about like this, you know, my team's better than your team, it's put into our everyday life. You know, Coke's better than Pepsi. The Browns are better than the Rams or whatever. I mean, yeah, and I'm just throwing things out there. I don't know shit about fuck when it comes to that kind of stuff. But
because without it, yeah.
I mean, but you can run the joke as far down as you want. I mean, you could go into the classic college football joke, which is Clemson versus University of South Carolina. It's one of the oldest jokes in history. Like, the house divided. It goes that far. It's at every level of human thought.
And that division, though, that division, I believe, is where the big problem comes in, because, you know, you guys were kind of touching on it a little bit earlier, but when things like, say, George Floyd happened, instead of being, that was an atrocity that shouldn't have happened or be filmed, nobody should have to die at the hands of a cop, you've got the other side of groups going, well, what did he do? Why didn't he just follow the orders he was supposed to do and fight it in court? Why didn't he just this? Why didn't
he was on drugs?
And like, you know what I got to say to all of that shit?
Yeah. Absolute joke. It's ridiculous.
Because I don't think there's any reason to, you know, if especially when it comes to cops, I think they should be held to a far higher standard, because you are working in the public as a service supposedly to us, and you should be held to the utmost higher standard. You being in the military too, Terry, I've heard Bandit talk about this before too, where he's like, okay, yeah, we're taught to apprehend people, and we can apprehend people without killing them, even if it's a 15-year-old with a fully automatic rifle trying to kill us. Like, we can apprehend these people without actually having to use the just abusive brute force that police will tend to use. And you always hear these stories of the standing army against us and stuff like that. And when you're militarizing police officers, when you're militarizing low IQ order followers to be able to have tanks and military riot gear and stuff like that, and chemical weapons that are banned in warfare, but it's okay for you to use it on civilians as a cop because you're serving and protecting. Yeah. You're taking that pot dealer off the street before he sends that money back to Al Qaeda. Like, get the fuck out of here.
I've mentioned this before, but if there is to be any meaningful presence of law enforcement in the U.S., and this probably goes for anywhere across the world, it comes down to a matter of training and skills, interpersonal, social skills, training in de-escalation, which law enforcement does not have.
They have the opposite.
They objectively do not have that training. So if society were to continue in the way that it is now with policing, that must happen, or this powder keg is going to blow. And honestly, I think that's probably about how I'm going to probably close out my thought on that. But that's really what it boils down to in the end of it all, is that there is absolutely more training that has to happen. We need a cohesive thought on how police conduct business with the public. Obviously, they are isolated inherently because there is a natural distrust. Jimmy, to your point earlier about you being alienated from your family members gathering over bragging about that is a stupid thing to brag about. I mean, that's weapons grade stupidity in my opinion.
I didn't even know who that 76-year-old man was, and probably never will, but I was going to defend that man at that dinner table because,
for real.
That was just wrong.
It comes down to all those things. It comes down to that conditioning. We have to unlearn that bullshit. We have to provide the tools and resources necessary for police to be able to conduct business, and not just fucking let a trigger happy fucking shithead loose with 2 weeks of training on, hey, here's a gun and a badge. You met physical fitness standards. Here you go. Now go shoot some bad guys. That it's a bad way of doing things. Yeah.
I do want to ask both. I do want to ask both of you though. And I would like to hear from both of you, Terry. I guess I'll start with you before we do get ready to start wrapping up. Since then, since you broke your chains from order following, how have you how has that evolved you? Do you think it's made more of a difference that you can see your mistakes that you did with that, and maybe see others and try to help guide them, or do you?
I feel like I've been on a journey ever since. So once you realize that you weren't intellectually correct, or you were maybe partially brainwashed the first time round, then you become open to, well, if I'm wrong about this, then what else am I wrong about? So you start, and then you're more accepting of other people having different views on societal issues, whatever it may be. And then so you start to, fully grasp ideas and speaking to people because you're more open, because you've accepted that you were on the wrong side of history, so to speak. So for me personally, it's been a bit of a journey, and politically, intellectually, and I feel like, I'd obviously be able to share that. And obviously people, if you're digging on the military or the police and say, well, you can't say it. So, well, I can, because I've been in that order following position. I know what I'm talking about. You can disagree, but facts are facts. And let's be honest, we're never serving communities at this point. And if we're ever to break that mold, then you have to be able to highlight the psychological and the us v them a lot more, to see that people aren't serving the community. They're serving a bunch of masters. So for me, it's been a journey, and I'm still on it, to be fair. Speaking to you guys, speaking to everyone else, it's brilliant. And then obviously I've got a Facebook page, which when it's not strangled, we can reach a lot of people, and people do come around and say, oh, I've learned something new there, and you've changed my way of thinking. It doesn't happen en masse, but it can be a contagion. You speak to people, and then they start to pick up on your ideas, and they get where you're coming from. They know that you're not an enemy. You're just trying to help them see your train of thought. So that's where I would go. I've basically been on a journey, and
hearts and minds, man.
Just passing on what I know and what really I feel about the world we live in. And I think if more people get that education, and they aren't censored from information, the people that aren't psychopaths are going to come round. And I do think that they are coming round as well. I think the tide is turning. I do. I could be wrong, but I feel like people are starting to come away from this objective.
No, I don't. I completely agree. Like as someone who's been out here screaming into the void for going on 20 years about trying to get you guys to wake up, like it's great to be able to finally have these conversations with people and not automatically be pushed out the door as the crazy conspiracy theorist with the pirate hat on. Like there is some legitimacy to it. And like I've said, since I started with this show, maybe this specific message didn't resonate with you this time, or maybe you didn't understand it this time. And that's why I definitely recommend, just like with, books and stuff, go back and retouch it, because maybe there was something after your eyes did open that did resonate with you, or hopefully some of the things that were said here today resonated with you. And in that case, go back and check out past things as well, because these are the conversations I think we have to continue to openly have to move forward. You're not going to find on your NBC News talking about order followers and stuff like this.
They're not going to interview Mark Passio, are they? Put it that way.
They're not going to interview Mark Passio for sure. And there's probably a ton of people out there that don't even know who Mark Passio is, and I'm hoping that little clip at the very beginning that we started with maybe shows you guys a little bit of something, and helps you guys
encourage people to watch it.
And that's and listen to what he's saying, because there's more to it. That was just a 7-minute clip out of like a 2-hour speech. Like he's very passionate about his order followers things. And you're right, Terry, there's a few things even in there through that speech that I feel indifferent about on his views, but the baseline of order followers being the reason we are in the state we are today is absolutely to do with the order followers. I know in my little small town, I didn't run into it much, but in places like New York City, where cops were dragging people out of places for not having masks on. What is your problem, officer? Like, get off of your I'm bigger and better because of my costume than this other human being that doesn't want to follow some stupid crap handed down by tyrants and stuff. Like I've heard before, there's technically clauses in like police and military and stuff that if you think an order is unjust, you can refuse to follow it. But like you just said, if you're in a group of people that are excited about going to kill people because they were brainwashed into saying it was okay, and you're like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't kill these people, odds are you're about to get a bunch of shit.
Mutiny is still democracy.
Groupthink.
As fucked up as that is, but
no, you're right. Yeah. So, well, of course, you guys know everything that we've talked about today. I'm going to make sure I've got links back to everything that we've pulled up and shown off while we've been chatting. I always make sure there's good links to that. And of course, I'm going to have a link up there to Terry and Defeat the Media that I was just sharing there a few minutes ago. And you can always find it on unconstitutionalawakening.com. I try to help Terry out when I'm not banned on Facebook, because me and him run into a lot of the same issues. The meme world will get you shut down real quick, and that's what kind of led to why you guys see me and Neptune and Bandit and even Terry and stuff and more. You see us now and hear us instead of just memes, because we had to find another way around some of this stuff. And I thought podcasting would be a good route to try and do that. So it's different and it's fun. And I've had a great time in having these real important conversations. I think that other people need to tune into every now and then, maybe to get a good perspective on some stuff. So Terry, you got anything for me before we sign out?
No, it's been a really good conversation. I would encourage people to watch Mark Passio or anyone else who talks about order following, because you can obviously piece different pieces together. But when you look at the general picture of order following and actually question the models, then you'll see that maybe it's not the job title you think it is. So that's all I'd like to say. And just thanks, Neptune and Jimmy, for bringing me back on again. Yeah.
Anytime, buddy. You're always welcome to come and join us and have a good time. Neptune, you got anything before we cut out?
Nah, man. I agree with Terry 100%. Nah, it's been a good conversation, man. It was good to see you again. Too. And Jimmy, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, of course, you guys know that I can't sign out without having a good pirate joke to end this episode with. So